All right, what's going on, guys? We're going to get started with the summary of markets week 37. And then after that, we're going to go over our options watch list for this coming week. The last week, if you guys watched our video, we talked about how SPY was kind of breaking out of this rising wedge, or was putting in this rising wedge. And it was kind of a bad spot to enter longs if you were looking for a long entry. I told you guys if you were wanting to chase that move, you could take it with smaller size, but you probably don't want to chase it with too much size because we were still playing out a bearish pattern. And it was consistently gapping up, which is not typical of SPY. And it doesn't like to leave a bunch of gaps unfilled. So you really don't want to chase moves like that. And that's basically what we covered last week. And we talked about how you were hitting the top of this wedge, and we thought it was going to be bearish on Monday because of the stimulus news that came out. But actually, right after the video, there was better news that came out that said that they were still planning on getting the stimulus passed. So they're just playing with our emotions. They've been doing it for the past couple weeks. They keep saying there is stimulus, and they're fighting about it, and there isn't. Then they bring it back. It's going to be like that until the election, basically. So just be prepared. If you guys are trading SPY or Qs, you're going to get pushed around a lot by the stimulus news. So I wouldn't be planning too long term. If you were playing SPY, I'd probably be just taking smaller positions and planning short term day by day because the news is going to get to you. But looking at what we saw last week, you had the wedge breakout. And then I told you guys if it broke out, you were watching that upper target around 354. So what it actually ended up doing here is you failed the wick of this level, not the body. So I typically take bodies when I'm doing levels. This actually ended up failing the wick. So kind of rare for that to happen, but that is what happened there. You hit the wick, you failed downward, and then look at where you bounced. You bounced right on that initial gap. So you had that first gap here, and then the second gap there is support. So we actually went ahead and filled this one, so we can take that away. So now we have a remaining gap below us around 341 to 343, which looks like we might even fill this week if we don't have any good stimulus news and the markets continue downward. If I'm looking at pure technicals here with no news, this is pretty bearish because you have a blow off top where you try to break out of this rising wedge. It fails to break resistance. You go back into the rising wedge, nuke it. You filled a gap. So you have a little bit of support here, right? But then look at this. There's no follow through. You have that support filled, and then you go for the follow through, the continuation day. You hit that rising wedge, and then you instantly nuke downward. And the funny thing about this day is it looks very bearish, right? But if we zoom in here on like the 1 hour, it wasn't doing too bad. You were consolidating, wasn't looking too bad. And then the last hour of the day, it just started nuking, mainly driven by Amazon, I believe. Amazon was bringing a lot of fear to the market. If you do look at Amazon, it sold off very rapidly right at the close. I still haven't figured out why exactly that happened. I did see some news on Bezos selling some shares, but that was actually before that sell-off. So I still haven't found out why that sold off, but it did help SPY go down there. And like I said, pure technicals, this doesn't look too good. It looks like it wants to go lower. So keep an eye on 344 as like the top of that support down to like 341 as that lower gap fill. I think if you pull back here and you start to find support, this could still be bullish. So I wouldn't be like panicking, looking for a complete failure down to 320. It's not too bearish until we start to break through like 340. So if you start to find a lot of value below 340, then I would target that lower pivot around 331, which we'll talk about next week because I don't think we're going to see those levels this week. So we'll talk about that next week. But for this week, keep an eye on the supports here around like 341 to 343. And if you do want to go bullish, you really have to keep an eye on these two resistance levels around 354. If you start to find value above 354, then you will go into all-time highs, okay? So these are basically your two zones to watch. Right now, you're kind of just ranging with no confirmation. All right, moving on to gold. Gold's still following our summary of markets analysis. You basically aren't doing anything. You're just ranging, waiting for the final say on stimulus. As I told you guys last week, the trade is very simple. If stimulus gets passed, gold and silver should go up. If it does not get passed, gold and silver should continue to fall. So keep an eye on around 1925, 1950. Those are your resistance levels you want to break. And then if you continue to fall here, I'd watch 1810 as your lower bearish target. Right now, you're kind of looking like a miniature bear flag here. Definitely trying to accumulate, but price is not finding any buyers. All right, moving on to oil. Same thing's playing out that I told you guys last week. I told you guys that this bulldog pattern was playing out. You have a little bit of a support here, double bottom, pop up, pull back. So you're still putting in the head of that bulldog. So keep an eye on that. If you do start to break above the back of the bulldog around 41.50, 42.75 is the easy target. And then you should be looking at a breakout above 44 if you can find value there. Your bulldog is still bullish as long as you're above like 39. So any kind of consolidation or pullback here should still be bullish. So keep an eye on that. All right, moving on to Bitcoin. Bitcoin basically hasn't done anything since our last week's video. You're still playing out that bulldog. So you had a bulldog down here at the bottom, double bottom, pop up, pull back, and then we broke out. So this is kind of what we're looking for oil. Looking for when we're watching oil is this pattern to play out. It hasn't played out yet on oil, but it played out on Bitcoin, right? So there's the head of the bulldog, popped up, and now you're putting in a kind of a miniature bull flag here. So this is still bullish until you probably get below this pivot around 11,140. You're still going to be bullish. Even if you pull back a little bit, it should still be bullish. But if you start to find value below that pivot, then I would start to watch for around 10.8. And then if you really start to find value below that, 10.1 would be your lower target. If you continue the bullish pattern, you would be looking at around 12,000 as your target. All right, moving on to Ethereum. Ethereum has not really broken out of this range yet. I told you guys last week that it's weird that Ethereum used to be leading Bitcoin. Now you're kind of following Bitcoin. So you have not broken out of the range yet. Maybe if it breaks out of the range before Bitcoin does, it could start leading Bitcoin again. So keep an eye on that. If we start to find value above 391, Ethereum could easily see 420 and then 440. If you don't push higher pretty soon, you probably will retest this pivot around 353. And then you have a lower support around 322 if you do want to go lower. Right now, I would lean bullish. There is no real signal here, but I would lean bullish because you do have a breakout from support and then you're kind of pulling back to consolidate and find buyers. So I would lean bullish here, but no clear signal. If you start to find value above 391, that would be your signal that it should go higher. All right, that is the summary of markets. We're going to move on to the options watch list. We're going to take a look at some things that we're watching next week. Let's start with AMD. So I like AMD here. I've been keeping an eye on it all week. It didn't really give me any signals, so I didn't take this trade. But you are holding this daily pivot. I would like to see it hold above like 83 and a quarter to get to 85, 86.50, 90. What I might do this week if the markets are looking pretty bullish, I might sell some premium on AMD somewhere around like $80 and then just hope that it goes up or goes sideways, and then we'll collect that premium. So I'm keeping an eye on this for a premium play. I'm not going to be picking a very bullish play. It would mainly just be selling puts. NVIDIA, I was watching NVIDIA for this uptrend. You started to break it. I thought about selling premium up here, but I didn't want to because NVIDIA still looked pretty bullish. If NVIDIA pulls back to like 573 and starts to kind of double top here, I might sell some calls kind of around like 600 or like 590, whatever will give me a good credit. Or if we continue to consolidate here and find buyers, I could sell some premium down around the 530 range. So I'm looking for two different trades on NVIDIA this week. It's gonna be dependent on how we play out like Monday and Tuesday. So I'm gonna keep an eye on this. All right, moving on to Walmart. So Walmart, we took I think it was like 80% profit. I sold some. What was it? We were selling puts. I sold some puts around 138, I believe I had. And our target was 143, so we hit our target. I could have held these for 100% profit, but 80% was good enough for me. And now we're failing that upper pivot. So if this can't get above this pivot by like say Tuesday, Wednesday, I might sell some puts, or excuse me, sell some calls around like 150, 148 for more of a bearish play. That would also be looking at kind of a break of this uptrend here. So right now we're holding this uptrend. If you start to fail this uptrend, I'll probably look to sell some calls. For the meantime, though, if you do start to find value above this pivot, I could look for a diagonal, probably around 150, 250, or looking at kind of a break of this high as my target. So watch out in Discord. I'll give you guys some exact strike prices when I get confirmation that this is breaking the pivot. We'll probably build a diagonal to make some premium on this. Let me set an alert on this actually. Put an alert right above that pivot. So if this thing starts to break above the pivot, we could look for a diagonal to the upside. So keep an eye on that. All right, NIO. We had a disgusting week with NIO last week. We made about 40% of our account on all those NIO trades. I'm going to make a separate video going over my entire trade process for the past like month on NIO because we played this thing like a fiddle. Like we absolutely killed this trade. And I was in and out of this thing almost every week. I was selling premium. I was buying naked calls. We were all over this thing. We had butterflies, diagonals, all kinds of stuff. So I'm going to make a separate video on NIO talking about how we played NIO. Right now, NIO is kind of extended. My main targets were 25, 28, and 30. We've already hit 25. We've already hit 28. 30 is my only target left. I'm still holding I believe a diagonal on NIO. So we are selling a little bit of premium, and I do have some calls left. If we do get up to like the 30 range, I'm probably going to close my trade on NIO, unless it just keeps going vertical. If it shows me any signs of sell pressure around $30, or even on Monday, if we start to pull back, I'll probably take profit on this trade and wait for it to consolidate a little bit. But I'm always keeping an eye on NIO. If it gives me an opportunity to sell premium, I will do it. So just look out in Discord. I'll give you guys some alerts if I do find some trades. Right now, there are no trades on it, though. All right, moving on to the big tech that we always talk about. Microsoft, you are breaking that range. You hit our target around like 222, and now we're starting to pull back a little bit. You did fill that gap, and you tested that support. As I told you guys, what was that, Thursday? I told you guys last week that all these supports on these tech stocks were being tested. So if you were looking for like a quick in and out day trade, that was kind of where you were looking to trade it. Now that that bounce has played through, or played out, I should say, and we don't have any follow through, it's a little sketchy. So I don't see any trade on Microsoft right now, but if you do pull back to retest this support and then we do start to climb again, we could sell some premium back into the range. So we'd sell like 209s, 208s, somewhere inside the range. So if we do come back to retest the range, that would act as support and we could collect our premium. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on a pullback on Microsoft here. Let's actually set an alert so I don't forget about this thing. So if we do pull back, I'll be looking to sell some puts. All right, moving on to Apple. I like this little micro uptrend on Apple. We're actually, okay, I didn't notice that, but we are actually starting to break through this. So depending on how we open on Monday, if we open below this micro uptrend and we fill this gap, then it's probably going to be pretty bearish. But if we open up above this trend on Monday, or if we break above it on Monday, this could look pretty bullish. So depending on what we see on Monday, we could be looking for a breakout trade, maybe like a diagonal, to look for a gap fill around 131. If we start to push lower here, I probably won't touch Apple until we fill the gap. And then if it fills the gap and starts to consolidate, I might sell some puts around 111. If we start to break down and push into this support, I'll probably sell some lower puts, probably around like 105 to 103. But I'm always looking to sell puts on Apple. They give me a really good premium, and I like the way the options move. So I'm always looking to sell premium on Apple. So we'll keep an eye on the pullback here during this week. If I find some, if it finds some support, then I'll let you guys know. Facebook, basically the same thing I just said about Apple. I'm watching this thing for the pullback, but right now there really isn't any trades. Um, there's just so much uncertainty in the markets right now, especially with SPY and Qs. So taking these big name tech stocks, it's just not a very good idea right now. You kind of want to wait to see if they find support. Depending on how you take this trend line, if you take it from buy to body, we are breaking it. If you take it from the wicks, it actually is still holding this trend. So we'll keep an eye on this trend on Monday and Tuesday. If we hold this trend, we could sell some puts probably around 255. I wouldn't go any higher than that. 255 is probably the highest puts that I would sell. If we do pull back down to the 258 range, this thing actually looks pretty bearish. So if we pull back here and start to consolidate, I will probably sell calls actually and look for a pullback down to like 243, because Facebook, out of all the big tech names, this little uptrend here was pretty weak, and you didn't even fill the gap here, and you already started to fail downward. So the sell pressure is there for sure. So if we break down, consolidate, you will most likely continue. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll be looking to sell puts most likely on Facebook. Moving on to Netflix. There's no trade on Netflix. I told you guys last week that our final target for the call side was 565. Those targets were hit. So you could have flipped short and sold some calls up here, but right now there really is no trade. If you do pull back to the pivot though and hold this pivot around 525, you could sell some calls, or you could buy a diagonal to the upside, collect some premium if you do go sideways. I think a diagonal would be the best way to play Netflix here. So if you find support on that pivot, let me set an alert. You would probably be looking for either selling puts or buying a diagonal. Okay, Amazon is a big question mark because I don't know why it sold off so rapidly on the close. I still haven't found the news on that. Nobody in our group could find it. Nobody on my stream could find it, so it's really a mystery. The only thing that I saw is, like we talked about in summary markets, Bezos sold some shares, but that was kind of like old news. So we'll see if we can find out on Monday why that sold off. But I'm not touching Amazon right now. Technicals, that sell-off did get bought up, and you are still above the range high. So if I had to lean to one side here, I would lean bullish, but I would have to see some continuation on Monday or Tuesday. So if you do start to hold the range high on Amazon here, you could definitely sell some puts around the 3150 range, or you could buy a diagonal towards 3500. All right, last but not least, Tesla. As I told you guys, the only trade on Tesla is if it holds above 450. If you don't hold above 450, there is no reason to go long on Tesla here. So if there's any trade, there's a bearish trade. But going bearish on Tesla is usually not a good idea. Historically, you get murdered. So it's better off to just wait for the dips to happen and then to go long. But I like Tesla above 450. I also like it around 415 if you do pull back to support. If you lose 415, 375 would be your lower target. But all right, guys, that is it for the summary of markets. I am going to be posting this on YouTube and on Facebook. We just started our Facebook group. So if you guys are watching this from Facebook, I appreciate you guys. Make sure to like the post, subscribe, like the video on YouTube, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace out, guys.